Hello, I'm Pastor John Embry at Greenwood United Methodist Church. Welcome to Foundational Friday. Last week I discussed God's grace in the life of the disciple of Christ. I specifically talked about prevenient, justifying, and sanctifying grace. Today I'd like to visit more about prevenient grace, as it is the grace that goes before our awareness of God's presence in our life. It's there whether we recognize it or not, and it's a grace that John Wesley believed that no matter where we went in this world, God's grace would be there for us. Much like the psalmist said in Psalm 139, verse 8, "If I go up to the highest heaven, you are present in my life, and even if I make my bed in Sheol, you will find me there." God's grace in this specific way works where before we are aware of it, in a way that brings us into an awareness of who God is so we can respond to God's love. Because in our own nature now, with original sin as a part of who we are, there's nothing holy about us until God works in our life. But for that to happen, God has to make himself known to us. I'm reminded of the story of 1 Samuel, where young Samuel in chapter 3 is working in the Ark of the Covenant one night, where he falls asleep and hears the voice of God calling to him saying, "Samuel." And Samuel gets up, and because he doesn't know the voice of God yet, he runs to Eli, the priest, and he says, "Eli, I'm here. How can I help you?" And Eli says, "Go back to bed. I didn't wake you up. I didn't call you." And so Samuel goes and he lies down again, falling asleep, and the voice of God speaks to him again, "Samuel." And Samuel, thinking it's the voice of Eli, gets up and runs to his master and says, "Eli, master, I'm here. How can I help you?" And Eli says, "It's not me. I didn't call you. Go back to bed." So Samuel again goes back to bed, and again God wakes him up. He runs to Eli thinking it's Eli, and Eli, finally realizing what's happening, says, "Samuel, it's the voice of God. If it speaks to you again, say, 'Here I am, for your servant is listening.'" And in that very way, Samuel came to recognize the voice of God in his life and became a mighty prophet and judge for the people of Israel as he grew in that relationship day after day. Prevenient grace worked in Samuel's life in that way to bring him to an awareness of God, and then he had to become the person God needed him to be through justification of his life. That's the way that works in the life of all of us. And in a way, God is actively working in our life through prevenient grace, helping us to become aware of who he is and who we are. Prevenient grace is that love that we experience in our life that is without condition. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have to deal with the sin or seek forgiveness in our life, because in a very real sense we do. But it's that love without condition that leads us into a joyful relationship with God, where we understand that God is working in our life and has been working in our life to bring us about to that awareness. And sometimes that prevenient grace is also there to prevent us from entering into relationships or even doing things that we shouldn't be doing, by that conscience speaking to us saying, "This isn't a choice you need to make." I'm kind of reminded of the Garth Brooks song, "Unanswered Prayers," in which Garth Brooks acknowledges in a song that sometimes some of the greatest answers to prayer are those that go unanswered. And sometimes that may be a way in which prevenient grace works in our life as well. But the thing about prevenient grace is that it brings us to this awareness of God that makes it possible for us then to respond to God's love in our life and the forgiveness that we can find in him through justification. Now, that's another kind of grace. But what's important for us as Methodists, as Wesleyans, is to understand that prevenient grace is there for all of us. As John Wesley said in the Principles of the Methodist, for the preventing grace of God, which is common to all, is sufficient to bring us to Christ, though it is not sufficient to carry us any further till we are justified. It's a reminder that prevenient grace only takes us so far. It does not put us in right relationship with God. That is the purpose of justifying grace, which we'll talk more about next week. I hope you have a great weekend, a great Memorial Day, and I hope that everyone stays safe. And I will see you soon. Bye.